I'm Brian Steverson. I'm the John Aram Chair of Business Ethics, and I want to welcome you and everyone who's in the virtual space attending, and thanks to all of you for being here as well. Welcome you to the 13th annual 2021 Aram Lecture in Business Ethics. We will conclude no later than 7:30. I can guarantee you that, right? So please, I know you'll get antsy after a while, but try to hang in there. There'll be plenty of time for Q&A towards the latter part of our time together. And the way we'll handle that is we'll take some in-person questions, and I'll also be monitoring the chat on the Zoom feed. And if you have questions and you're doing this remotely, please just type them into the chat box, and I'll pull some of those out to ask Mike Roth after he's done regaling us, okay? Few things before I do the introduction. First of all, a couple of thank yous. A shout out to Dean Ken Anderson, Dean of the School of Business Administration, for all the support that he has provided this lecture series over the past 13 years. We have an entire ethics week, as some of you may know, this week. The second event for the week is going to be Thursday at what we call an ethics panel. It'll be in the same room from 4 to 5. So it's a shorter event. It'll be myself, Professor Lighthouser, and Mr. Kevin McQuilkin, who is our executive in residence this year here in the School of Business. And the topic will be giving back to one's community as part of modeling or exercising one's career in line with the Jesuit tradition. So really a theme for this week, as it is for all ethics weeks, is this Jesuit tradition of business education and the role that ethics and values plays in that. So that's on Thursday, 4 o'clock, same room. This lecture series is named in honor of Mr. John Aram. He was a longtime benefactor and supporter of Gonzaga University and the School of Business. When he retired in 1988, a number of timber companies, Weyerhaeuser, Boise Cascade, Potlatch, and some other industry friends and just family friends, put together and founded an endowment for a chair in business ethics. One of the things Mr. Aram was known about throughout his career, or known for throughout his career, was his emphasis on ethics, both in his personal business dealings and business-to-business dealings, right? And so the chair, the position is named in his honor and to reflect his concern for and emphasis on ethics in the workplace. I'm very honored to be the current holder of the Aram Chair and to be able to sponsor this lecture every year. Hopefully it does his memory. He passed in 2000 well, and helps to continue on this tradition that he emphasized of ethics. All right, all of that's out the way. Now it's time to introduce our 2021 Aram Lecture in Business Ethics. So I think it was yesterday, I sent Mike an email saying, Mike, I need like some bio information for the introduction, right? Because I need to say a little bit about you. Being the humble person that he is, his response was, Mike Roth, retired athletic director, Gonzaga University, as if that's all there is to know. That's all there is to say about Mike Roth. So I added some stuff.
I thought I sent you what Barry had done, so I apologize.
No, it was just that, and that's fine. So
that's all that matters.
Yeah. So I just wanted, Mike can tell you about himself if he wants to in his presentation and his time and his work here. I just want to highlight some of his accomplishments, and it is really just a small sample. I've looked at a longer list of the achievements and honors the student athletes here at Gonzaga have achieved during his time as athletic director. That would take me to 7:30 to read all of those. I can guarantee that. So let me just tell you a little bit about it. He served for 34 years in leadership within Gonzaga Athletics, including 24 years as our athletic director. He retired this past August. Congratulations on that. Something I'm looking forward to if AJ will ever let me retire. Not going to happen. He served as an assistant men's basketball coach from 1982 to 1983. He returned back to the university in 1987 as assistant director of athletics, a position he held until 1997 when he was named acting director of athletics, and then he became director of athletics in September of 1998. I think those dates are correct. Since his first day in office, Mike has talked about three pillars upon which his work as athletic director has been built. Three areas of emphasis: the classroom, the community, and competition. And the success of our student athletes here at Gonzaga over those 24 years bears that out. And if there is anything that we could talk about as Mike's legacy, the indelible imprint that he has left upon the university, it is that throughout careers and the time our student athletes spend here, those three aspects of their participation in the Gonzaga community and the larger community have been emphasized. And that's remarkable, Mike. Thank you for that. Some honors. During his time as director of athletics, he has received the Under Armour Athletic Director of the Year honor twice, first in 2008-09 and again in 2018-2019. And I assume you get a lot of swag for that. So Under Armour swag, I'm hoping.
A plaque.
We have earned 73 appearances in NCAA tournaments and championships, and 31 student athletes have been named All-American. We have been a perennial national leader in both our progress rates and our graduation success rates. In fact, in the last 4 years, we have been the nation's best or second best. During his time as athletic director, more than 3,500 student athletes have been named to the president's list here at GU, which is fantastic. And last but certainly not least, thousands of hours of volunteer work have been affected by our student athletes, both in the local and regional areas. So that, again, is just a very short sample. So without any further ado, please join me in welcoming our 13th annual 2021 Aram Lecture in Business Ethics, Mr. Mike Roth.
Thank you, Brian. And again, thank you for coming this evening. Thank you to those of you that are watching this be recorded, or however that works electronically. I take IT to a whole new level downward from that standpoint. So I don't understand any of that. And AJ is going to let me know if I need to use the microphone. If any of you want me to use the microphone, please let me know. Again, appreciate being invited to do this. Dr. Anderson and I go way back. As I was telling Brian that we both have pictures on each other, so we can't ever turn each other down when it comes to asking a favor on something. And he's doing a fantastic job here with the School of Business under his leadership also. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm talking to any group about any subject at any time is I want to be sure that when you leave here this evening, or those of you that are online, before you turn it off and watch baseball, is that you're getting the question answered that you came here to get. Because I can stand up here all night and talk about things I want to talk about. Our staff would, when they found out it was only an hour and a half, they kind of, our staff, the athletic department staff, which I'm no longer a part of, it's hard for me right now. They would laugh. They're like, Mike can't clear his throat in an hour and a half. I mean, you could go forever. So I just want to make sure that I touch on areas that you really want to know about. And we can go down any rabbit hole you want. I am not opposed to going down any rabbit hole or talking about anything. Anything that I do talk about, however, is just my opinion. And yes, I've been doing the job as an athletic director for 24 years, and we did the job for 24 years. And we had a lot of fun, a lot of success, and we changed a lot of things, not only with athletics, but with the university in that process. But I learned a lot during that time, and I learned right up until the last day, and I learned even new things beyond that. And that's the biggest thing that I think we can all do for ourselves, is know that life is a learning journey. It's, when you hear that from people, I'm a lifelong learner type of thing, is what some people will say. And you might not believe that at, 18 to 22 years old, but you will when you get to be a lot older than that, like me. And so, please help me tonight with asking me questions, because I'm probably going to learn something from you. So the whole topic, of course, is ethics leadership, how that ties in to with Gonzaga here and our Jesuit heritage, you know, who we are as an institution. I've spent, as Brian said, 34 years here at Gonzaga. That's more than half of my life. And that doesn't count the year that I was here as a student. I was actually here as a student my freshman year. And it doesn't count the year that I was here as an assistant basketball coach. So more than half of my life was spent here at Gonzaga. When I first started, and Brian first started, we had a lot of Jesuits around. We had Jesuits in a lot of classrooms. We had Jesuits in administrative positions. We interacted with the Jesuits every day as students, as faculty, as administrators and staff. It was great. Well, now here in 2021, we have very few Jesuits. It's just the nature of the beast. Right? So we don't get that level of influence with those people as we used to. However, it's up to us then, your faculty, your staff, your administrators, everyone you encounter, including yourself and your classmates, to then live or help with learning that Jesuit way. And Brian said, athletically, we've always chased three things. And so there's a lot of pictures of me holding up three fingers like this. It's not because Matt just hit a three-pointer or anything like that. It's because we chase those three goals. We're going to win in the classroom. That means student athletes graduate, including at really high levels. We're going to win in the community. That's being good citizens. That's giving back. That's doing community service. That is who, you know, that is living the Jesuit life. And yet we're also in the most extreme competitive business there is in higher ed, in Division I college athletics. And so we're out there to win every game we possibly can in every sport. And none of those take a back seat to the other one. And one of the things that we're most proud of in the athletic department is we've proven to other institutions, you don't have to settle. You don't have to say, God, we're not going to be as good academically because we want to win more games. Or we're not going to be, you know, our student athletes aren't going to be great citizens because we want to win more games. Or we're going to be really good in the classroom, and because of that, we're not going to win very many games. We've proven you can do all three, and we're going to continue to do that. And how do we do that, though, when we're living in a world that ethics sometimes is questioned? When, especially in college athletics right now, there are black eyes out there. You know, throughout any sport, in any university, any institution. I mean, it just is what it is. And Forbes just had an article that came out yesterday, again, talking about the morality and the ethics of some coaches, college coaches in various sports. And it's not a great picture there, but that's a really small percentage too. That's a really small group. And so again, you know, what have we done? What do we do differently at Gonzaga as compared to our peers? Because something you have to understand, everybody wants to be Gonzaga. Okay? Every single one of our league competitors that are also our academic competitors, Santa Clara, USF, you know, Portland, San Diego, again, all of those league competitors, they're also institutional competitors for ours.
You have to turn your head to the left too much.
Don't,
Because of the mic.
I'll come over here and then that'll be easier.
Ken
Then I,
told us to tell you that.
oh, come on. How late is it back there, Dr. Anderson? Past your bedtime. Dr. Anderson's in New York right now. But anyway, my point is that if it was easy, everybody else would be doing it. And they can't. They haven't been able to. Why? Why have we been able to do it? Because we're committed to it. We're committed to winning in those three areas. We're committed to making sure we hire and retain the right staff. We're committed to bringing in the right type of student athlete that understands that you're going to do all three things while you're here. And that's not easy. If it was easy, like I said, everybody else would be doing it. And at this, you know, because everybody else would be the #1 team in the country or #1 athletic department in the country in APR and graduation success rate, but they're not. We are. At the same time, you know, we've got a team that's preseason #1 in the country again, along with women's basketball, baseball, tennis, soccer, women's soccer this year, especially with their hot start. Again, we're doing it in every sport in every way that we can, and we want to do it with the Gonzaga, the Jesuit model. And it's hard to put our fingers on what that really is. And so I come around to leadership. What is leadership? What is the definition of leadership? That's a question. Anybody got a thought on that, of what the definition of leadership is, other than Dr. Anderson listening in New York? Help me out.
Just yell it out.
Don't let me call on you, because I'll call you out. Yeah. Wow. Dang. That's pretty impressive. You take his classes? Wow, that's good. Did everybody hear that? One more time, just a little louder. So now, somebody else, if that is, let's say that's a definition or our definition of leadership, what is the definition of a good leader, or and then we'll expand that to a great leader? What do you see? We've all had in our life experience, even those of you that are 18 to 22 years old, you've already had experiences with somebody that you feel, man, that person, that teacher, that pastor, priest, that parent, that coach, they just were a great leader for me. Can you put your fingers on what that was? Were you going to answer that? No, see, you never stretch when somebody's oxygen, or when they're auctioning something. You ever go to an auction? You don't move your hands. If you go to an auction, you move your hands, and they're going to call on you. You just bought it. So what would be your definition of leadership? So what would the qualities be of somebody that you've had as a leader? What were their qualities? Can you put your finger on what made that person that leader for you? Good answer. From my perspective, and again, as I said earlier, this is just my opinion, but defining what makes a great leader isn't defined by the individual, it's defined by those that are following. And if the person is truly a great leader, those people following are going to have trouble putting their finger on every piece that makes it matter to it. Just does. You know, you've heard that from some people of what they do. How are you so good at X, Y, Z, whatever it is, whether it be, esports, or whether it is, coming in at the end of a game and knocking down threes, or whatever it might be. How are you so good at that? Well, I just do it, right? And to me, at least, my opinion is the best leaders in history and the best leaders that we have today are those that people that follow can't really always put their finger on what it is, nor can the person who is doing the leading. I also believe that the best leaders are those that don't try to lead. They're not out there, hey, I want to be, and again, please don't be offended by this, because half of you will probably meet some of these things. I'm running for class president, I'm running for, ASB president, I'm running for, I'm going to be, the next CEO of this or the leader of that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, ultimately, your great leaders are sometimes very unassuming in their leadership style. There are other leaders out there that are very charismatic. And at least in my opinion, some of those really charismatic leaders aren't exactly great leaders. I mean, look at history. How did some really bad people get in charge of certain things throughout history? Some guy in Germany back in the 30s, how did he get in charge to do all those horrible things? He got in charge because he was charismatic. He didn't force his way in. He was given the reins, and then he forced it. At that point in time, I won't even mention his name because it's not worth it. But to me, charisma does not define leadership. It defines, hey, I want to go hang out with that person. They're kind of cool. I want to be with them. I want to be seen with them and those types of things. But when push comes to shove, do you want to be led by them? Do you want to have them be the person telling you, hey, this is what we need to do today. We need to get through this crisis. And you think about what we've been through here at Gonzaga and what our society's been through, what the world has been through in these last, how many months are we up to now with COVID? Started in March of 2020, and we've been dealing with it ever since. And here we are sitting here with masks on, and I'm visiting with you through this mask, so I can't see your facial expressions and you can't see mine. It drives me crazy. But it is what it is. And the places that have been successful in weathering that storm, there's a lot of reasons for it, but sometimes it comes down to leadership. But crisis by itself doesn't just define leadership. In some ways, leadership is almost more defined when it's not a crisis. Because when it's a crisis, we all know we have to join hands, we have to bond together, we have to get a direction, we have to go with it. But when it's not a crisis, when everything seems to be going pretty well, nothing's ever going to go perfect. And so when things are going pretty well, sometimes people want to, have opinions, or they want to have more opinions. They're not as willing to, lock arms and move in that direction. And so the great leaders are those that are able to lead good times and bad, crisis and no crisis. Another big thing with me from the standpoint of leadership, a buzz that I've been using forever. Again, there's people on our staff. Our present athletic director, Chris Standiford, and I have worked together for 30 some years now. He started as a senior when he was here at Gonzaga with me, and he's heard me say this thousands of times. With leadership, there's a difference between command and demand. Command and demand. Is the boss, is the person who says, look, you're hired or fired, it doesn't matter what the field is, you have the ability, because of your position, to demand. You can demand your staff, you have to do this, you have to do that. I need, you do this, do that, go get this, go get that, whatever it might be. You're in a position to demand things. Great leaders never do that, in my opinion. Great leaders command respect and command their followers, command those that they're working with to want to be a part of it. Demand, I have to do it because I want my paycheck. I have to do it because whatever. A couple of years ago, I actually spoke on this topic out at Fairchild Air Force Base. The commander asked me to come out and speak to his officers. So we had a group about the size of the group that's in the room here. And we talked about that. And I talked about command versus demand. And I said to them, this is me learning in the process. I said to them, I know it's different for you guys because of, the chain of command, your group, your subordinates have to salute and literally and follow your orders. And it was interesting what they had to say. They said, yes, but no. They said, yes, if we have to resort to that, we are not going to be as successful as if we command that leadership, if we command their respect, if we command their ability that they want to follow that direction, they want to follow me down that path. In their case, they're providing the freedoms that we get to enjoy every day. And it was really interesting for me to hear those officers talk about that. And then they wanted to ask more questions about how my thoughts were on commanding that respect, again, not demanding it. And you can, again, you can play with synamics, or you can, get fine lines and everything else. But to me, it's really simple. Okay. I tell you what I need you to do. And I tell you, it's not ask you, it's not please or thank you. It's go get this done right now. And sometimes it's with that attitude. Go get this done right now. That's demanding. Okay? And if somebody says, well, kiss my backside, okay, well, then they're probably not long for employment if that's the attitude you have as a leader anyway. But if you're commanding them and getting them to want to do things with you, not so much for you, but with you, is you say, please, thank you, can you, will you, I need you to, I need your help here. It's really simple in that regard. It's treating people with respect, no matter what your position is in the hierarchy of whatever the business is. One of the ways you do that is knowing people. Doesn't matter how big your organization is, you need to know people. Okay? How many people know the names of the custodians that work in their dorms, those of you that live in dorms? You probably see them every day, right? But do you know their names? Do you guys know the names of all the custodians that come through the building? Nothing is more powerful than using somebody's name, especially when society views that person is less than. Because, hey, these guys have PhDs, right? And they've got doctor on their offices, and I can say all that because my whole family is doctors and I'm the only one that's not. But, and so if I'm a custodian, I'm looking at that going, okay, yeah, this doctor and he or she, they're really smart, and I'm going to do everything. It makes their day when you walk up and say, hey, Bob, Betty, thanks for doing what you do. Thanks for cleaning my office. Thanks for being there for me. How are you doing? And when you do those things, you need to make sure you're sincere as a leader. You got to be sincere. You should do that no matter what, in my opinion. You need to have sincerity. How many times do you pass people in the hall and you say, how you doing today? Good, good, right? Yeah, that's what we do. I walk by AJ, I say, AJ, how you doing? She goes, good, good. Okay, we're both lying half the time, right? I mean, are we always good 100% of the time? No. So, challenge yourself with, when you do that, to be honest and say, somebody says, AJ walks by and she says, Mike, how you doing today? And I say, fair to Midland. I mean, it's not, it's not a great day. Now, if she's listening, she'll stop and say, really, what's going on? If she's not listening, you know what she says? Good. Right? Think about it for a minute. Have you ever done that? I have. You have to challenge yourself to treat people with respect 100% of the time, not part of the time, 100% of the time. And when you do that, and you show competency and you show ethical behavior, how you treat people, how you deal with people, and competency at the same time, what happens is you're now commanding things where people say, I want to. So to me, a good leader is not defined by people from the outside looking in. People can look at my career as athletic director and say, oh, Mike was a great leader. They don't know. They were never in the office every day. They didn't see anything behind the curtain. Okay? And, I can say, oh, hell, I was a great leader. Look at all the success. I mean, Brian listed all these things down. Really? The people that define whether I was a good leader or not are the staff, the people that worked with me, not worked for me, worked with me. Those are key little phrases that are just so key for being successful and being able to, whatever life path you decide to take, to make yourself successful, especially as those opportunities arise. I mean, ultimately, who doesn't want to be the CEO, right? I mean, most of you and folks online and everything, I guess you got to look at that camera there, are here to be leaders, right? And we have all these programs. We talk about servant leadership. And we have, we have a whole master's program in organizational leadership. And we have all these leadership pieces here at Gonzaga. And now we have a full ethics side too, and pushing forward, and have had for a while. And we're continuing to push forward on that because we are going to be judged differently coming out of Gonzaga, and we should be judged differently than Joe Blow from state school that learns, okay, I'm learning how to make money, cut to the chase. I'm learning how to make money. I'm learning how to be a CEO, and I'm going to run that business and make myself, and I'm going to make a name for myself, and I'm going to be, blah, blah, blah. That's not being successful, not in my opinion. Being successful is being, again, you can still be the CEO, you can still be in charge, you can still have a lot of people wanting to follow you and wanting to be a part of what you do, but you can do it the right way. You can do it where they want to be there every day. And when they have to make a career decision along the way, they make that a decision that's not just financially related or anything else. They're making the decision, I want to work for this person. I want to work with this person. People would say to me, Mike, I want to work for you. Especially when it came time for me to hang it up, I had people come in and say, Mike, but I only want to work for you. And I'm like, well, first off, you don't work for me. You work with me. And second off, I'm a lot older than you are. So we're not going out together unless you win the lottery or something. So, but my point again is that you can create that. You have total control of your ability to be ethical and to be a great leader. There's not a lot of things in life that we have total control over. And sometimes that makes for really hard decisions because you can be in a position where somebody says, I need you to do this. And the ethical line is a little gray. And, at that point, you might have to make a decision. Hey, guess I'm not going to be here anymore. I guess I'm not going to work here anymore. I mean, this whole mask vaccine thing, it's been a nightmare for everyone. And some people have drawn a line in the sand of saying, look, I'm not going to get the vaccine and I don't want to wear a mask. Okay, that's fine. That's fine, but that's also a career decision or a personal decision or whatever you want to view it as, because we have to protect each other in that regard. That's why I'm wearing the mask. It's not to protect me, it's to protect you. It's like the Pope said, getting the vaccine is out of love, not for yourself, but for others. And to me, that's the ultimate form of leadership, is doing what you do for others and having to make really hard decisions. Really hard decisions are what you get once you reach that level. That's what you get paid for. All right, I've been rambling here for a while and nobody's asking questions. So we're going to be done really quickly. I know some of you want to be done, but I would like to hear some questions.
Yeah, and so we can stop now and take some questions.
And we can go any direction, down any rabbit hole you want to go down, as far as I'm concerned. The last time I checked, I still had the microphone, so I got 25 minutes.
So you're still behind the podium.
Sure, I can still roll it.
So I'm going to check. I'm going to move to your left and check and see if you have any questions in the chat itself.
Looks like there's some chat.
Yeah, and so you can read those off.
How can I read those off? I don't.
Okay, I can read them for you.
I'm like 90 years old.
I didn't mean to embarrass you like that, Mike, in front of everybody.
You don't have to embarrass me.
I
got my glasses.
So one thing I'll ask you to do, if folks who are here in person ask a question, if you'll just repeat it, because the microphone doesn't pick up folks in the audience.
Okay.
So, but you can move back and forth between in the room and the chat folks.
All right. So let's stay in the room for right now because I'm not sure I'll be able to figure out this chat thing without Brian or AJ's help.
right.
Anyway, so yes, sir.
Why Gonzaga? I think out of all the schools that I've worked at, clearly you don't have a very successful career, but why do you think you chose to simulate like your freshman year?
So the question is why Gonzaga for me, for my decision? And that's, for me, it's pretty easy. Yes, I was here as a freshman. I transferred out after my freshman year because I wanted to play more, to be quite honest with you. I was a walk-on. It was before your parents were born. And yeah, some of your parents weren't born yet. And the coach was great with me at that point because I went in and sat down with the coach and I said, hey, am I going to play? And he said, no. He said, we want you on the team. We need you in practice every day, but you're never going to play. So I left because I wanted to play. And I came back, again, stars aligned. There's all kinds of decisions that were made by other people that helped me in my career. One was Jay Hillock, who was the head men's basketball coach here at Gonzaga in the early 80s. He had a young guard playing for us who was almost as good as Matt. He played a few years with the Utah Jazz. What was his name? Stockton, that's right, John Stockton. So I was on the staff getting to coach Johnny every day. It was a great experience. We didn't, actually at that time, we didn't know how good he was. But you connect the dots. If Jay hadn't offered me that job, I wouldn't be standing here today as the retired athletic director at Gonzaga. But why did I stay? And again, I've been asked that question. I stayed no differently than why Mark Few stays, or Mark Maptoff stays, or DJ Goulet stays, or Chris Standiford has stayed, or Shannon Strahl has stayed, or Ken Anderson, Dr. Ken Anderson has stayed, is because we love this place and we believe in Gonzaga. We believe that we can reach the highest levels here at Gonzaga. Now, we have alums that will tell you when they were here, they would have laughed their head off that this, what we're living today, was even dreamt about. We have an alum that told my son one time, well, last year after the UCLA game, my son asked him, this is an alum, men's basketball alum, they're walking back to the hotel together. He said, when you were playing, which was in the 80s, could you have dreamt about this? And his line was, we couldn't dream about dreaming about it. And so why would I leave? Why would I leave Gonzaga where we've built something and I want to go run off to someplace else because they're offering me more money? They're not doing what we do at Gonzaga, which is people. And I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of people on this campus over the years, and going back, I mean, as I'm walking over, I always park down at Martin Center. I just can't help it. I'm walking over, I walk by Father Art Dessau's bust that a lot of you walk by every day. I got to work with Father Art. You know, he was here when I first started here. I got to work with him on a regular basis. So there's icons throughout the university that I got to interact with. I didn't want to lose, but yeah, I mean, it's because it is Gonzaga. And it's kind of simple in that way. Just like, why did you come to Gonzaga? Well, you came to Gonzaga because it's Gonzaga. Why did these guys teach here? Because it's Gonzaga. Other questions?
So we'll do one from the chat room.
Yep,
Could you
please.
talk about a time where you had to make a decision that perhaps fell in an ethical gray area, and how you worked yourself through that?
Well, I'm not sure I can talk about specifics in that regard, and in some ways because I'm not sure I can even recall an incident or a situation in that regard. It's interesting, and if early on in my career as athletic director, I had a good friend who I'd known ever since I was in high school, was the AD at Arizona at the time, Jim Livingood. And Jim said to me, Mike, something you got to understand, the more successful your programs are, especially your marquee program in men's basketball, the more being the AD is living in dog years, 1 for every 7. And I laughed at the time, and I'm 42 years old, and I'm like, yeah, right. Well, he was right. It takes its toll because every day you're actually faced with decisions that for some people are literally, it's their career or not, or a student athlete, it's what they believe it's their life or not, or whatever might be the case. And sometimes they are very ethically challenged decisions. We had a situation a long time ago now where a coach brought a national letter of intent. The student athletes all signed to say, hey, I'm coming to your school, and the school signed saying, hey, we're going to give you a scholarship when you come to your school. And the coach brought that in to me and gave it to me, and I said, well, time out. Tell me about this kid. Wait a minute. Tell me more. And this young man had a questionable past, and at the same time, we didn't know everything about that questionable past. And so I said to the coach, I said, I can't sign this until you bring back to me what's going on with this young man. Why does he have this questionable past? And a day later, I found that letter of intent on my desk all torn up because the coach was so pissed off because that young man actually went to another institution, and he actually ended up getting in all kinds of trouble and got the coach and the president at that university fired. So we dodged a bullet. Was that me being ethical or just being lucky? Luck has a lot to do with a lot of things, right? But people have asked me over my career, Mike, what about this? What about that? And I'll say, yeah, I'm just lucky. I'm just really lucky. And one of our head physicians, Dr. Arne Peterson, he retired just a couple of years ago. And this was, again, back in the early 2000s. And Arne saw me, we're visiting after one of the seasons. He said, great job, pat me on the back, congratulations. I just said, yeah, I'm just lucky, Arne. I'm just really lucky. He goes, I know you are. I said, I know you're really lucky. But let's remember what the definition of luck is. Does anybody know what the definition of luck is? It's when preparation meets opportunity, right? It's when preparation meets opportunity. And so always be humble and always tell people that you're lucky, but always know that you're preparing yourself. That's what you're here in school for, to prepare yourself for that opportunity. If you had asked me back in 1982, or when I was getting my master's degree here at Gonzaga while I was coaching, if I was going to be the athletic director at Gonzaga someday, I would have told you no. If you'd asked me when I started back in 86, 87, I would have told you no. That wasn't on my radar. That wasn't a direction I was going. But I was preparing myself as best I could just from how I treated people and dealt with situations for whatever might come. And I have, over the years, I've had a lot of young people, a lot of your peers come in and see me and ask me questions about, where should I go in life? What should I do? I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that. And, my classmates are, we're graduating next year, and all my classmates have jobs lined up and all these other things, and they've got their life laid out in front of them. Well, my opinion on that, and I tell people, is that, good for them, but you're in such a much better place. Because I go back to when I was there. Now, that was 100 years ago, and, when I played basketball, we had peach baskets and all that stuff. But when I graduated from college, people would ask me, what are you going to do? And I would tell them the truth. I don't know. I didn't know what I was going to do. But a lot of whys in the road ended up with me being the athletic director at Gonzaga. A lot of dots got connected along the way. And so what I tell young people is a Yogi Berraism. Okay? You all know who Yogi Berra was, catcher for the Yankees. Of course, your parents maybe might know your grandparents. We'll all definitely know Yogi Berraism, and it's, it's not over till the fat lady sings, and it's, all these things were Yogi Berraisms. But one of the ones I like the best is when you come to the Y in the road, take it. And to me, that's what we should be doing in life. Yes, we can plan, we can prepare and everything else, but we don't know what's next. When you come to the Y in the road, especially at 22, 23, 25, whatever it might be the case, take it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, don't freak out about it. You're not 60. you can back up and take another why, because there's gonna be whys in the road. And again, as I said earlier, when I was younger, I didn't think I'd be the athletic director at Gonzaga. Our present athletic director, Chris Standiford, when he graduated from Gonzaga, he didn't think he was going to be the athletic director someday. He didn't know where he was going. He's got a history major, for gosh sakes. Shannon Strahl is our deputy athletic director. Shannon's been with us again since she was a senior here at Gonzaga. She's a business, not only an undergrad business grad here, but also an MBA here in the School of Business. And she's our deputy athletic director for now 23, going on 24 years. If you would ask her when she was sitting in the audience here, are you going to work in college athletics? She would have said, what? But there was a why in the road and she took it. So, you know, that's one of the things I like to tell people is prepare, be lucky. Prepare so when that opportunity comes, when you hit that why in the road, don't freak out, just take it. And then if it feels right, it feels right. If it doesn't, back up and take another why and go from there. Other questions in the room?
In the back.
Yes.
In what areas do you think Gonzaga could grow?
So repeat that.
And the question is, in what area can Gonzaga grow in their leadership strategy? You get it right? Wow, I feel good about just getting it right. I think, you know, I think that the key to leadership starts at the beginning, i.e. listening. And I had on my desk for years, and I still carry it with me and keep it on a regular basis. And I'm going to read it with my glasses. It'll give you a sense of where I think it, you know, we always need to improve is what it comes down to. One of the things we know in college athletics, which is a microcosm of an institution, but also a microcosm of any business, because big time college athletics that we have at Gonzaga is a big business, is you're either doing one of two things. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. If you think you've got it wired, if you think that we've got this figured out, we're gonna make this work because we've got it figured out, turn around, because that's the direction you're going. You're backing up that very moment that thought crosses your mind. You can never be satisfied. You always have to be willing to learn. And for me, my last 10 years as AD, I learned so much more than I did the first 10 years. One of the reasons why is because I was willing to learn. Sometimes young leaders, we want to prove it. We need to prove that we belong. We need to prove that we can do it. We need to prove it. And so we're not as willing to listen to other people. We're not as willing to be open to other people. And I learned that early on. I was lucky enough to learn it. But when I first started out as AD, I needed to have my fingers on everything because I needed to prove that I could do it to other people. Why do I have to prove it to other people, for gosh sake? I only need to worry about the mirror, right? So I learned quickly that the best thing for me to do was to listen. And as a leader, you're going to have, no matter what type of business you run, you're going to have a core group. In our case down in Gonzaga Athletics, we had senior staff. Okay, we had our senior staff, which is our deputy AD and associate ADs, and there were 9 total, including myself, 10. And one of the things that I pounded in with them, especially with Chris and Shannon, who I worked with for all those years so closely, was their number one responsibility for me. And they would quote this to other people when I would challenge people. I'd say to AJ, you know, hey, go ask Shannon what her number one responsibility is in regards to working with me. And she would tell him without hesitation to tell Mike when he's wrong. You need to give, as a leader in leadership positions, you need to give people the power to come in and tell you you're wrong. And you have to be willing to listen. You can't just shut them out. You can't just don't want to hear it. You know, you have to be able to listen. And so Here's the card that I would keep on my desk. We must be silent before we can listen. We must listen before we can learn. We must learn before we can prepare. We must prepare before we can serve. We must serve before we can lead. And I'll send this to AJ, and AJ can share it out. AJ screwed up my PowerPoint, was supposed to be all ready to go and everything. I don't know what happened. I'm just joking. I wouldn't know how to do a PowerPoint. My wife has a PhD in information systems. Okay, that's what she does. Or did. She's retired now too. I don't know how to turn a freaking computer on, for God's sake, let alone people always ask, oh, Mike, you're speaking, you got a PowerPoint? I just laugh. What's a PowerPoint? Anyway, she'll send this to you, but I'll read it one more time because to me, when I got this, I read it and I realized I've got things I got to work on here. We must be silent before we can listen. If we're sitting there having a conversation with somebody and we're not listening to them, if we're talking, we're not listening. If we're interrupting, we're not listening. Right? So we have to be silent before we can listen. We must listen before we can learn. Again, that's just common sense, right? How are you going to learn without listening? We must learn before we can prepare. We must prepare before we can serve. And we must serve before we can lead. And for me, the example is the person, the leader that will do or has done the job. People that come up through the ranks. I had John Hemmingson, who, we have the Hemmingson room down here, Hemmingson Center. John Hemmingson said to me last year, just this last year, he said, Mike, you look at all the most successful corporations within America right now, they all bring their leadership up through the food chain. They don't parachute them in, was the term he used. They don't bring a CEO from this other type of business into theirs, because then they have to learn the culture, or most of the time what happens is they're going to change the culture. Now, if you're not successful, if your business isn't successful, your area is not successful, yeah, make wholesale changes, bring different people in, make changes. But if you're successful, you look at those and they elevate within. And so then when people are looking up the food chain, they realize he or she got there, I might be able to get there, and they've done my job. They've literally sat in this chair, or they've literally walked in my shoes. And that's one of the things that gets people to want to follow, going back to command versus demand. Because a couple phrases that I like, again, one is that you can judge the character of a person by what they do when no one's looking. It's one thing, and now, of course, in your guys' world, everybody's looking all the time because of these devices and that. But do the line I've used with our staff, when you're the last one to leave the office, you're walking through the Hall of Honor there in the Martin Center, and there's a piece of garbage on the floor. Do you bend over and pick it up if nobody's around, or you just walk right by it? And would you bend over and pick it up when other people are there? Would you open the door for somebody, or because other people are watching, or will you open the door when nobody else is watching? Again, to me, it's when it's nobody's looking. Now, some of that's just old school, good Catholic education, being raised. My mom would beat me with a stick type of stuff. I love them to death still. But, I literally told a student this last year, I might be all by myself in the locker room, and I'm old, so sometimes, I make noises. Let your imagination run. And I'll say, excuse me. I'm the only one in the freaking room, right? But I'll say, excuse me. Again, because it's just been ingrained in me that that's what you do. But that's an example. The other line, and this was a plaque that I kept in my office. It was given to me by the mother of a student athlete that struggled while they were here at Gonzaga. And things weren't always perfect. And we could have kicked that person to the curb, but we didn't. We decided, look, we'll give them another chance. We'll work with them. We will, and this was not a superstar. This was not somebody that was going to, win us a whole bunch of games or anything else. It's just, this was, again, Gonzaga. It's the right thing to do. And Mom gave me a plaque. It stayed in my office. Now it's at home. It says, again, you can judge the character of a person by what they do and how they treat someone who can do nothing for you in return. It's one thing, and there's nothing wrong with going over and helping the little old lady across the street like the Boy Scouts do. There's nothing wrong with helping a benefactor who is going to then do something very significant for the university, as an example. But at the same time, there's also the right thing to do in treating people that you don't know, or that maybe, they don't have the same luck in life. Going back to knowing custodians by name, what are they really going, what can this person do for you? If that's what your motives are, I feel sorry for you in that regard. So look at this. I got 60 seconds.
Oh, no, we're good. We're going to keep it a little while longer if that's okay.
Sure.
One question in the chat box. Can you describe an event or a time or a person who had significant impact on your development as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been blessed to be here so long that I had the opportunity to interact with a lot of different people. Father Coughlin was the president when I first came to Gonzaga, and it still is to today. I think Thane someday might pass him here, but the longest standing president in the university's history. Father Coughlin had a way about him that wasn't confrontational. It was not my way or the highway or anything else. It was, and yet during his tenure, if you go and look at the history of the university, during his tenure, the university almost folded. We almost folded as a university because we were in such a financial crisis. And he was able to build that and work through that. I've had an opportunity to work, like I said, with Father Dussault, Father Reggie, a number of Jesuits that actually impacted, again, some of my thinking, yet at the same time, one of my first experiences when I came back to Gonzaga and interacted with some Jesuits a lot, because they were teaching a lot then, was a Jesuit that's actually still here on campus, so I won't use his name. But we were getting ready to put an event on, and he was down there, and I heard like 12 F-bombs in about 3 minutes. And again, being born and raised Catholic, but not going to any Catholic schools and not being around priests other than on Sundays. And my mother, bless her heart, priests were deities, basically. To see priests being human, kind of they just take a step back a little bit in that regard. But, Harry Sladich is somebody that none of you would know. Some of your parents, if they went to school here, would know. If your grandparents, they maybe went to school with Harry. He had a great influence. He's the one that put me in the position to take over as AD and gave me that opportunity. Harry passed away now quite a while ago now. I think it's 15 years maybe. I reach out to his son on his birthday every year, and we celebrate his birthday every year. In that regard, had a huge influence. So, there's been a lot of people. I talk about Ken Anderson a lot of times jokingly, but Ken and I spent, when he was a faculty person here, he was actually our faculty athletic rep, which is now Dr. Peggy Sue Raz. Well, Dr. Anderson and I spent a lot of time together when he was our faculty athletic rep. We traveled a lot to meetings together and everything else. And Dr. Anderson had a great influence on me in that regard. I mean, again, he and I didn't always view things exactly the same. And he didn't hesitate to tell me that he didn't. And that was great. If all you have around you are people that are going to say, yes, sir, no, sir, whatever you think, I tell our senior staff, or I used to tell our senior staff all the time, look, if all you're going to do is say whatever you want, Mike, and never disagree with me or not bring new ideas, I'm getting rid of half you. Because I can bring a clerical person in to do the paperwork. I need people that say, Mike, you're wrong. Or have you thought about it this way? And that's who, once you become that leader, once you become that CEO, you need to make sure you surround yourself with people and give them permission. And I think that's the one thing that some leaders fall short on. Going back to your question, institutionally, we can all work on that, which is giving, not just giving permission, but also then acting upon it. And in, you know, my line to my senior staff was always, look, if you want to see me get mad, don't tell me something and then later on say, we were going to say something to you, but we decided not to. No, you know. Now, again, do it respectfully, do it in the right situation. You know, you're not going to call somebody out in the middle of anything, but that's what you need to be a great leader, because you got to go back to what I said. You got to be silent to listen, and you got to go through those steps to be able to lead.
Two more questions. Do we have any in the audience? Because we have several in the chat.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Well, can we?
You're big online, Mike.
Can we narrow down who it is on the chat though? I mean, there's
We'll never reveal that information to you.
because I'm not taking any from Greg Bowie.
Okay.
I'm not taking any from Kevin McGuoka. And I mean,
So one question I got to ask, it relates back to a point you made earlier about being a leader during a time of conflict and then being a leader during times of normalcy, if there is any such thing. What's the role of accountability and delegation of sort of decision-making power that plays in those two scenarios?
well, I think they play out almost the same in some ways. Once you get into that position of leadership, you have to, as quickly as you can, you have to move into that, okay, I need to put my ego in my pocket and I need to be open to other people, and sometimes let people fail. Because if you stop every idea, that's a bad idea, that's a bad idea, that's a bad idea, that's not going to work, I've been doing this all these years, that ain't going to work. Guess what? They're not going to bring you ideas anymore. And you as the leader, I don't care how big your organization is, unless you're a one-person organization, you need people to have ideas, and you need people to help you. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. And if you're by yourself, you're going to struggle with that. So, you know, there's plenty of times where we have had conversations and somebody through our staff brings an idea. Last summer during the COVID, and we knew that we weren't going to be able to have fans in any of our events. And of course, it's a big deal for us. We needed to send out a letter that was, hey, folks, you're not going to be able to come to games, and this is what it means, and this is how we want to handle it. Well, our staff that works in that area really were convinced the verbiage they wanted to use. And I didn't really like it that much, because I felt that the majority of people are going to interpret in a negative way. And yet, you know, talked with Chris and Shannon about it, and I could say me, but we made the decision, yeah, we'll let it roll. Guess what? It bit us in the butt. Okay, it didn't work. It was everybody got, not there, a lot of people were upset in the verbiage of the letter, and they were upset. I mean, the media got a hold of it, and they were taking us to task and everything else. Well, sat down with that staff, and I said, hey, gang, we got to fix this in a hurry. And guess what? You're going to work a lot harder than you were before, because you're going to have to call everybody personally. And anybody that called me, I talked to. And the first thing we did, we apologized. We're sorry. We made a mistake. It's not just an apology. It's we made a mistake. Ownership. We made a mistake. We didn't do this correctly. That wasn't our intention of how you interpret it. But we're resending the letter and making it work. So at times you let people fail as a leader, because that's going to help you in the long run. There's a great example that goes way back. Oliver Pierce was our longtime sports information director, back when sports information directors did different things than they do today. And we had a young man playing for us. He was our first team All-American, first team academic All-American in men's basketball, Dan Dickow. So if you need to go get your hair cut, he's got his place right over here. Anyway, Danny was first team All-American, first team academic All-American his senior. So this is leading into his senior year. We know he's crazy good. And we're trying to promote that academic All-American status with media around the country. And so Oliver comes with this great idea. Okay. We did media guides in those days, and all the media got us a magazine, basically, put Danny on the cover, and it's going to be in 3D because Dan's middle name was David, Dan David Dickow, 3D. And Oliver says, what we're going to do, we're going to print it in 3D. And every media guide will be 3D glasses. And so you put the 3D glasses on and it'll be just so cool. And I'm like, oh, that's the stupidest idea I've heard. That's going to sit on people's desks and coffee table. It's all blurry. Unless you wear the 3D glasses, it's blurry. It's going to look bad. It's just not going to work. You know, and he was just so passionate with it. I finally just said, okay, let's do it. Screw it, do it. Guess what? That was the biggest hit we've ever, I mean, everywhere we went around the country. At the NCAA tournament, there's stacks of those things and people were just all over. That's the greatest media guide ever made in the history of sports information. I thought it was a horrible idea, but I let it go. And it turned out to be a great idea. You have to take risks. You have to trust. You have to give your staff the opportunity to stumble. If something goes wrong, though, make sure that you own it because you ultimately made the decision. You know, so the letter that went out last year, I made sure that people knew it wasn't our staff's fault. That was my fault. Even though you guys, I just told you that I didn't want the letter to go out that way, but I allowed it to go out that way so that at that point I got to own it. The flip side is you share the glory. You share the glory as much as you can, as constantly as you can. But when it comes to when things aren't going well, when the going gets tough, you own it and you don't publicly throw anybody under the bus. But another key is you don't privately either. People do that, unfortunately. People will go out there and they'll stand up, hey, this is on me, this is on me, this is on me. And then they walk behind the curtain here and they pull their staff in that actually probably did screw it up and they chew their backside, you know, and they're just all over them. They're just so upset about it. That's not leadership to me. Again, that's not the way to do things. You own it with them too. You say, hey, I'm sorry this happened. And they're like, hey, no, it's on me. You said, no, this is my responsibility. And again, you're trying to get into the command versus demand. So what do you think, Brian?
One last question.
One last
and you'll know who this is coming
Oh
from.
my
It's
God.
going to come from me. One of the questions we've asked of each of our 13 Aram lectures is, and this is directed at our students, so you're going to be talking to our students here. What about the Jesuit tradition of higher ed, which you've been a part of now for 3+ decades, right? What about that? What about Gonzaga University as a Jesuit university? Can they take with them, or can they fall back on as they think about themselves in their future as leaders, be it in business or some other kind of enterprise? So what advice would you give our students, Mike?
Well, again, my advice would be doing what you're doing today, which is getting your education at Gonzaga to start with. This is, yeah, I'm really biased, but it's a special place. We have unbelievable faculty that are teaching in ways or teaching things that others might look at a time and go, oh, okay. But in reality, again, the challenge is to think for yourself, to make decisions for yourself. But in my position, or my former position, now my position is retired athletic director, so my position as athletic director, I got a chance to interact with 99% of our university benefactors throughout my years. Not just athletic benefactors, but institutional benefactors. And we have fantastic institutional benefactors, a lot of which are alums, a lot of which aren't alums too. But what's really interesting is watching and learning not only the alums, but those that aren't alums that then be involved with the university for a number of years and seeing how they are conducting their businesses and how they operate in the Jesuit way. And, sometimes you can't put your finger on it and just say, well, that's Jesuit. I learned along the way that in my case, I probably didn't use that word enough. I would just say, hey, this is how we do things. We're trying to do the right thing. Our default is to do the right thing, no matter how hard it is. And a lot of times the right thing is the hardest thing to do. And how do you know it's the right thing? That goes back to who you are as a person, the influences you've had in your life, whether it be parents, friends, faculty, and ultimately what it feels like inside. I had a coach one time ask me, I need to make a decision between this and this. And I said, quit using your head, use your heart. And I think, to me, that's where that's what the Jesuits have taught us, is we lead with our heart. We use our intelligence, but we also lead with our heart. And when we do that, again, no matter what those Y's in the road are, we're going to look back and say, yeah, there were tough times. I would hate to recount how many tough times that I had in my 34 years here at Gonzaga. There wasn't always fun, and but I don't remember those that well. I do remember a lot of the good ones, and that's just part of life, and to think that everything's going to be roses all the time, that's not realistic. But make the best of it, and make sure when you're making decisions that you default back on what is the right thing, not what's the easiest thing, or what's going to make people happy thing, or but what is the right thing. And there's nothing wrong with prayer. There's nothing wrong with asking for divine help in that. And sometimes it takes a while, but other times you have to make a decision like that. Literally have to make a decision, A or B. You got 2 seconds. Your education, your experience, your preparedness for that opportunity are what's going to help you make that decision. So thank you very much. Okay. I said, it's like being in an auction. Careful raising your hand. Anyway, thank you guys for letting me be here. I appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Again, it's always a joy for me to talk with our students. And thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thanks to all of you for being here, both via Zoom and in person. Just one more plug for our ethics panel at 4 o'clock on Thursday in the same room.
Oh, I'll plug that too. You got Kevin McWilkin's going to be there. Kevin is a Gonzaga grad. He has worked his whole career back in New York. Crazy successful. He's now teaching here and moved back to Spokane. I have always found Kevin, I've dealt with him a lot over the years. Kevin is a trustee, and I've dealt with him a lot over the years. He's top of the line when it comes to knowing business and making solid, good decisions with the Jesuit, with the right thing, with whatever term you want to use at the forefront. So if you can, I wouldn't miss that with Kevin.
Thank you, Mike. All right. Thanks all of you. Enjoy the rest of your night.